All right, CNT125. We just got done configuring all the telephony config on the router, including the ePhones and ePhone DNs. We now want to get our phones powered up and actually in the network and getting their config from the router. So to do this, if you're on the logical, let's go over to again, on the logical tab, we see everything's still powered down. Let's go to the physical tab. Over here, we want to physically power these up. Now, this switch does not do power over Ethernet. So for our phones, we actually do need to plug a power adapter and a power cord in. So I'm going to click on the phone, and I'm going to drag the power adapter from here up to it plugs into that power port right there. So that one's powered. I'm going to slide over. I'm going to do the next one. Click on the phone, drag the power cord up, drop it into the power port there, if you will, and I'll do the third one here. Okay, that's going to power up the phones. The phones will actually boot up. If I look at the front now, oh, come on now. I'll click on this guy, and I'll click on the GUI. It should be showing the front. It's actually going through a boot sequence, talking to the switch, talking to the router, trying to get its IP, get its VLAN, get its IP, and then get its phone configuration. And then it typically reboots and applies all that, if you will. So we're going to let that happen. After that happens, then we'll worry about checking the PC addresses and so forth. So what I can do is I can go out here to the logical tab. I'm starting to see these come online, and I'm starting to get green lights. If it's still, working on it, you can hit the fast forward button a couple times. That'll speed time a little bit. Now that they should be powered up, we should be able to go to the PCs and make sure they're set to get addresses via DHCP. So I'm going to click on the PC here, go to the IP config and set for DHCP, and we're hopefully going to see our 172 address pop in. Yeah, there we go. Looking good. We'll go to the next PC here. Same thing, DHCP, and out here on this guy as well. So we're starting to get the network up and running. All right, I might save my progress here. So now I have the phones powered up. I have the PC set for getting IP address via DHCP. So if I hover over the PC, I'm going to see that it's getting a 172.16.64. That 64 subnet is for our PCs. That's the PC VLAN. The PC subnet from the PC VLAN. Now, if I hold my pointer over the phone, let's see if it gets an IP. It does. If I look down towards the bottom, you'll see it says VLAN 20, 172.16, 128.11. 128 was the subnet we allocated to the phone VLAN, the voice VLAN 20. So this is identifying it's belonging to VLAN 20 in that subnet. So our config here on the switch of stacking those two VLANs, it understood that, and it's now putting the phone traffic in VLAN 20 and the PC traffic in VLAN 10. Whoop, whoop, whoop. This is one of those, if Mr. Brown had a top 10 neato things in networking, this would be on there. That is really, really cool to do that. So now that I'm seeing that, and that's why I'm kind of holding the pointer over there and checking my IPs, I should see that on all these phones as I go across. I should see 128.12. There's over here, I should see 128, maybe 13. There we go. They're all getting their IPs. Now I'm going to look at the phone and see if they're getting their phone config. If I hold the pointer over and I look towards the bottom, it says line number 7001. It has registered and got his phone number. Here it says 7002. Over here it says 7003. If I click on the phone and go to the GUI, I'll see it has the date and time, and it actually has the phone number. So these have registered, they're in the correct VLAN, they have the correct IP, and they're even getting the correct phone config. And that's one of the reasons we set the clock there as well, if we get the right date and time showing on the phone. Excellent. Okay, I'll save my progress so I don't lose anything. What I want to do now then, and that's actually what we did here. We're checking all the IP addresses and phone config. We now want to do a test. So I'm going to open up two of my phones, and I'm going to check for dial tone and check that I can call each other. So what I'm going to do, this is going to take a little bit of like window organizing. I'm going to bring up ePhone 1, and I'm going to click over here on ePhone 2. I'm going to try to slide these next to each other so I can see both. Here's ePhone 1, here's ePhone 2. I'm going to take the receiver off this one. I'm going to dial this guy over here, 7002, 7002. It's a little slow. Be persistent. This is now ringing. If I click on the handset, it'll show those two phones are connected. They're actually connected to each other and passing phone data back and forth. And I can send phone data by clicking the little do-re-mi tabs up here, if you will. And that's simulating sending, voice data back and forth. Now I'll hang this guy up. That'll hang up. So we now, they're getting their phone config. They're able to pass phone traffic back and forth. Okay. There we go. So now we want to look at the router. What is the router showing us when there are no phone calls and then when there is a phone call? So I'm going to close those out. I'm going to go to the router. I'm going to pull up my CLI again. This time I'll do enable, and I'm going to do show ePhone again. Now that the phones are registered, this view should look different. Let me try to get all of this to show here for us. There we go. With this, I see ePhone 1 is registered. Here's its IP. Here's our, as I look here, here's the phone number 7001. Here's ePhone 2 registered. 7002, here's the IP, and so forth. ePhone 3, ePhone 4. Okay. ePhone 4 is not registered yet because we haven't turned on the Cisco IP communicator yet. So let's do that. I might have that written down here, but I'm going to do it now. If I load this PC and scroll down here to, here it is, Cisco IP communicator, and load that, it brings up basically a soft phone, and it should be picking up the phone number here, 7004. Okay, I think this eventually updates on the time and all, but we're most interested in 7004. So if I do a show ePhone now, that should hopefully show that it is registered, and actually is. There's a message showing ePhone 4 is registered. ePhone, we'll do show ePhone again, and as I come over here, I'll see ePhone 4 is registered. It's getting 7004. So that is what we want to see. We want to see all those. Well, there's what it looks like when there's no phone calls active. Let's make a phone call active, and we're going to repeat that. We're going to repeat that show ePhone. So again, we have to do a little bit of window management here. I'll pull up ePhone 1 this time, and I'll try to pull up ePhone 3. There we go. So we'll do 1 to 3 this time. So I'll dial 7003, and I'll make that phone call active. I'm going to go back to the router. I'm going to leave that active, and I'm going to repeat this show ePhone. And what I should be seeing now, I'll hit the space bar so I can see it all. What I should be seeing now is ePhone 1 is connected, ePhone 2 is idle, ePhone 4 is idle, and ePhone 3 is connected. And if I start examining down through, it actually starts showing you some details about how it's connected, IP address is connected, active call, etc., etc. And it even shows the codec that it's using. Hopefully you remember when we'll look through the IP phone stuff that I had for you, there was a little discussion there on the codec being used. 729 is a codec that does a little bit of voice compression to save some bandwidth. So this is using G729 for encoding and sending the phone traffic. Okay, and we're going to look at that phone traffic here in a little bit. So I'm going to go back here, I'll hang up this phone, and the other one should hang up as well. There's ePhone 1. Yeah, it does. I'm going to close them out. I'm just trying to keep from getting overwhelmed by Windows. Make note of that codec. Make note of that codec. That's one of the review questions I'm going to ask you. That's why it's highlighted here in green. Okay, so now with this soft phone, let's use the soft phone and make a call between two, because I don't think we did the soft phone calling yet. So I will pick up here, I will open up this soft phone here, and then maybe I'll open up ePhone 1 over here. Here we go. And we'll do a phone call. I'll do here 7004. Okay, and this I can hit the answer button here, and it shows the speaker button on. And again, I can do the whole send data traffic across, clicking the little do-re-mi's. Okay, so I will hang up this guy. Here's end call. I can hang it up, and that ends the call. So there's using my soft phone. It just kind of looks similar to the actual real phone. All right. Now we're going to add in basically a Wireshark, a sniffer, to capture some traffic between our phones. So to add the sniffer in, I'm going to go back to, we're going to do it between ePhone 3, we're going to do it between ePhone 3 and then our switch, if you will. So I'll grab a sniffer here. I'm going to go to my end devices, down here, end devices. I'm going to scroll out here to sniffer. And I'm going to move, connect ePhone 3 cable to the sniffer on port Ethernet 1. So I'm just going to grab this. If I grab that green triangle, I can move it over here to the sniffer. I'm going to go Ethernet 1. And then I'm going to grab a new cable, new straight through cable, to go from sniffer Ethernet 0 back into, remember, make sure it's one of our ports that we're using. We'll use port 3, if you will. Here's 1, 3, and 4. That's fine. Okay, we'll give that a second to settle. And now that that's settled, we're going to use that to look at our packets traffic. This is going to be just like Wireshark, if you will. So I'm going to open up this guy. I'm going to double click on him. I'm going to go to the GUI tab. I'm going to get rid of all the filters. I don't want to see all of that. I'll clear that out. And I want to just see UDP, RTP, and SCCP. So here we'll go to miscellaneous. We're going to go to SCCP, RTP, and we want UDP. TU, there he is, down here on the bottom. Just those guys right there. Okay. Now that I have that, I'm going to make a call between ePhone 3 and another phone. I just need to make sure I'm using ePhone 3 because that's where my sniffer's plugged in. So I'm going to open up ePhone 3, and I'm going to call maybe like ePhone 2 or something. Okay. So I'm going to open up ePhone 3. I'm going to pick that one up, and I'm going to dial with that. Okay, I'm going to get the phone call active. And now I'm going to send some data. So I'll do the do-me again. Here we go. And I'll do it from this end too. That way I'm simulating talking back and forth across the phone line. And then I will hang these up. And now I'm going to go examine my sniffer data. So when I open this up, I'm going to see some skinny RTP packets. That's what we're going to look at here. So let's open up one of the SCC packets. Okay, I'll look at one of these way down here. If I look at this guy, what I'll see, especially down here under the source and destination IP, this is the phone talking to the router to start processing this phone call, start setting it up. And I might actually see this one going from the router out to the other phone. Yeah, it is. And I see here source port 2000, destination port 1026. Okay, this is actually setting the phone call up. If I now click on the RTP, what I'll see is it's now traveling between the two phones, 12 and 13. The SCCP was setting it up. Skinny was setting it up. So it's going between the router and the phone and the router. Once it's set up, the router hands it off with RTP. It hands it off and says, you two talk to each other and pass the data back and forth. So I'm now seeing 12 and 13 talking directly to each other, UDP, and then here's the actual voice data. So this was the do-re-mi things I was sending back and forth. So there's the actual packet data moving between the phones. And as you see, as we talked about, RTP is carrying it, and it's using it layer 4 UDP. Instead of the overhead heavy TCP. It's using UDP to get it there quickly. That's what I want you to see with these protocols. That's what I'm wanting you to see with this sniffer and these protocols. All right, when we come back in the last one, we'll gather things up and save all this for submission.